And then he died, so that was too bad. Okay, so let's get started here. Quiz 1. We're going to be going over graphing sine and cosine, okay? So what we're going to do is, as a class, go over it. So to start off, let's look at this one. Based on the graph above, determine the amplitude and midline. This shouldn't be too hard. I want you to turn to your neighbor and just take about 20 seconds here. What is the amplitude? What is the midline based on that? And if you can't see, you can move closer. But talk to your neighbor. I want to hear talking. Go. All right, let's go to David and Brian. They were talking. What did you guys say was the amplitude? And what did you say the midline was? Let's check their work. Great job. So our maximum point here was 0. Our minimum point is -4, and halfway between -4 and 0 is -2. And the graph goes up 2 and down 2. Easy enough. That's a level 1 question. Hopefully everyone here can get that. Alright, this one is basically the same, but now we're going to also add in period. The thing that's a little bit tricky about this too is that it's going to involve looking at like fractions in radians. So I don't know how well you can see that. This is pi fourths, pi halves, 3 pi fourths. So we need to say how long does it take for it to complete a cycle. Let me give you about a minute on this one, but again, turn to your neighbor and identify where is the amplitude, where is the midline, and what is the period, okay? Go ahead. Love to hear talk. Maybe Nelly or partner up. Talk about it. Caroline, who are you going to be talking to? You want to talk to Skylar and Melissa? I heard they're friendly. Alright, let's switch this one over to Jade and Emma. What did you guys say for the midline? Okay, tell me how you got that. What was your... Let's do the max and min and kind of go from there. So what is your max? And what is your min? So if we add those together, we get 8, and half of 8 is 4. Do you guys agree with 4? Let's check. We're going to put in 4 and check my answer here. Good job, Jade. So then, from 4, how much did you go up or down? We go up 5 to get to 9, and down 5 to get to -1. Let's check that. Yes, great. Didn't do the period. Did anyone get the period?
I know it's between pi and pi 4.
So it's kind of tricky because if I start right here, it's like, hey, I go in, oh, I haven't finished the cycle yet. Say this way. So I have to measure from the bottom or from the top. Well, let's measure from the bottom, okay? So right here, oh man, it's right in the middle. I don't like that. But can I show you a trick? If it's right here and that one's right there, what if I just shift it over a little bit? Is that okay? So now what is this point on? If I just kind of say, if I slide it to the left a little bit, that's on pi, and I slide this left a little bit, what is it on? -pi halves, okay. So I'm going to just kind of slide it over, but notice with sliding it over, it doesn't change the length of a cycle as long as I do it to everything, okay? So what I've just done right there is I said to the left, it went -pi halves. Now we're not going to include the negative because we want to know the total distance here from -pi halves to pi. So I'm just going to say, hey, let's take pi halves, and we're going to add it with pi. Does that make sense? Because on this side, we shifted it to the left of pi, so I've got pi, and we shifted it left of -pi halves. So the total length here is going to be pi plus pi halves. What's the rule with adding fractions? Same denominator. Right now, are they the same?
No, you multiply by 2.
So this is really pi halves plus 2 pi halves, which 1 pi half plus 2 pi halves is
3 pi halves.
3 pi halves. So the period is 3 pi halves. That one was a little bit tricky, but let's see if that's right. So I'm going to put in here period is 3 pi halves. Sure enough, we'll check that. Boom, that's what it was. So we just got a point. Nice. Let's go to this next one. On this next one, we don't have a graph. We're looking at an equation. We have a 2 on the outside, an 8 on the inside. Now, I'm going to show you how most people did this question. They said, ooh, that 2, that's the amplitude, and then period is 8. Why is that wrong? Melissa, can you tell me why that's wrong? So the amplitude is 2, but is this number right here, is that what the period is? What letter is that? That's B. Good job, I heard Skylar whispering it. And if you remember our relationship here, period is 2 pi over B. So we're going to have to take that 8, and we're going to have to plug it into this equation to figure out what the actual period is. Because we know B, but that's not the period, okay?
2 pi over 8.
So let's do that. So period is 2 pi over B, and what we just said there, that 8 is B, so let's make that an 8. Does that kind of look like an 8?
No.
We'll go with it, okay? So 2 pi over 8, which that reduces to a fourth. So the period is 1/4. It's pi fourths. I need to have the pi in there.
Then you use both ways. Try to put it in, and period is B, and then take it out.
Let's check our answer. Boom, we got it. Now, there's a relationship between these two because what is our normal period? How long does it normally take for us to go through a cycle? 2 pi. But this tells us I'm going through 8 times as fast. So now I'm going to be done at pi fourths rather than at 2 pi. So when you get to these higher numbers, sometimes it makes it a little more confusing. But if you remember how earlier we said, well, if it's a 2, then I'm going twice as fast, so my period is just pi. If I'm going through 4 times as fast, then my period is pi halves. If I'm going through 8 times as fast, the period is pi fourths. If that doesn't make sense, just use the formula and figure it out from here. Okay, I'm going to have you guys tell me on this one, I want it to be 4 cosine. So turn to your neighbor. If it's cosine, what does it look like? And then if it's 4 cosine, what does it look like? So 1, 2, 3, 4, tell me which one it is. I'll give you 30 seconds. Go. Talk to someone else and see if they know. Louise, you need a talking buddy. You need a talking buddy. Who can you talk to share your ideas? What about Brian and David? They seem like good talking buddies. Do you guys agree? All right, come together. Luis said he thinks it's one on the top right. How come, Luis? Why did you think it was that one? Because it's stretched to 4. The other question would be, how do we know it's this one? Because this one is stretched to 4, but so is this one. Why is it not this one? Yeah, so this would be a negative 4 cosine. That's not that one. What is this one going to be right here? Is that a cosine? This is not only a sine, it's a, what? It's a flip sign. How do you flip a sign? With a negative, right? So anyway, coming back to it, Louise said it was the top right. Let's check it. Good job, Louise. Okay, cool. Let's go to the next one. Okay, we're going to take another graph here, and we're just going to pick it apart. But this one is going to involve actually writing the equation. So we've been pretty good at this, so I'm going to have Caroline help me on this one. Okay, Caroline? What is your maximum value? 2. Okay, great. What is your minimum value?
96.
Yeah, so if our max is 2 and our minimum is -6, how do we find the halfway point between those? So I could just kind of start here and say, let's go down 1 and up 1, down 1 and up 1, down 1 and up 1, and down 1 and up 1, I get -2. Is that a fair way to do it? Sure. A different way you could do it is just average these guys out. Do you guys remember how to average? So we add them together, so 2 plus a -6, and then divide by 2. So this is going to be -4 divided by 2, which is going to be -2. And is that what we said before? So the midline here, awesome, is at -2. Now one thing you have to be careful of here is sometimes the midline it wants a y equals -2, and other times it just wants -2. So if I put that in, it says syntax error, this is not an equation. What does that mean I need to add? Y equals, and now it's happy. Great. Alright, cool. Antonio, from -2, how much is it going up to get to 1, and how much is it going down to get to -6? Or sorry, I meant 2. Sorry, how much is going up to 2? So what is that one going to be here? The amplitude is 4. And sure enough, boom, there we go. Cool. Okay, I want you guys to turn to your neighbor, and I want you to figure out, notice here on the period, it's not asking for b, it wants period, which is the length of the cycle. See if you can figure out the period. Just turn to your neighbor and see if they're right. It's really quiet. You guys know it, or are y'all just confused? What did I ask you to find? What does period mean? The length of a cycle. So how long does it take from it? Let's start at our midpoint here. If it goes up, down, and back, how long is that? Just 3, right? It's kind of hard to see it from here to here, but again, if I just shifted this over a little bit, 1, 2, 3. Or here, if I shift it back, 1, 2, 3. So the period there is just 3. Now let's put that into the equation. Does that mean I'm going to put 3 into the equation? No, because we're going to use period is 2 pi over b. So let's first figure out b, and then we'll go from there. By the way, is this a sine or is it a cosine? Why is it sine? It starts at the midline, right? So if it starts at the midline, it's sine. If it starts at a maximum value, it's cosine. So, this is what it looks like, generally speaking. And we need to now add in the other things. So guys, what did we already have? We have amplitude is 4. What do we have d is? And then for b, we're going to use period is 2 pi over b. What did we say that the period is? We just found it. It was 3, so I'm going to replace period with 3. And how do I solve for b here? Switch spots. So b is 2 pi over 3. And that's what it's going to go right in there. So let's write this out. The equation here. Now notice for function, if I put y equals, it's kind of funny. It doesn't like y equals here for a function. It wants f of x for a function. F of x is 4 sine. And then we just said b is 2 pi over 3. Put in x. And our midline is at -2, so we have to go -2. I'm going to check all that. And we got full points. Nice. Cool. We've got a couple more here. Let's get through those a little bit quicker so we can have you guys retake this on your own, okay? Which of the graphs below represents the trigonometric function y equals -2 sine of x over 6? Okay, so Oscar, what is that negative going to do? If I just have regular sine and I times it by a negative, what does it do to the graph? It flips it, right? Now, does this one look like a negative sign? flip down, yep. Does that one look like a negative sign? Yep, let's check the other options. Does that look like a negative sign? No, that's a regular sign, so we know it's not that one. Okay, so out of 1, 2, 3, 4, we know it's not 3. Okay, cool. Braylon, what is this 2 in front going to do? How does that change sign if there's a 2? That's going to be our amplitude. It stretches it by 2. Has this one been stretched by 2? Yep, so it could be that one. What about the second one? It's good. What about our last one? They've all been stretched by 2, so that's not going to help us. It's going to come down to the period. Okay, so guys, what is the value of b in this equation? And there's where you got to be careful. If you said 6, it's not 6, because then it would be 6x. So I think that'll, hold on one second, we'll get to that. But what is b? What is timesing by x in here? It's 1/6. Do you see how that's, is 1 over 6 times x the same as x over 6? Yeah, but if I say it's 6, then I'm going to get this wrong, because that would mean it's going through 6 times as fast, and if I'm dividing by 6, it means it's going through 6 times as slow. So it'd be the complete opposite. So what we're going to do is take period as 2 pi over b, but we're going to say that b is 1/6. Uh-oh, what are we going to do if we are dividing fractions by fractions? Remember what to do there? If you couldn't hear Jade, she said keep, change, flip. We keep the 2 pi the same as it is. What do we change? We're no longer dividing, we change it to multiplying, but then I've got to take that denominator and flip it over. 2 pi is over 1, so I just go straight across and I get 12 pi, which that's what David, that's what you're saying earlier, right? So good, so our period is 12 pi. So we want this flipped, we want an amplitude of 2 stretched by 2, but then we also want it to be done in 12 pi. Does this graph work? Has it been flipped? Are you sure? It's flipped, it goes down to 2, up to 2, and it's done at 12 pi. So that's our answer right there. It's that first one. So we're going to check that. Full point. Okay, we've got 2 left, I think. Yeah. Okay, let's look at this one. Hang in there with me, guys. We're almost there. Let's look at this one. Midline and amplitude, that's easy stuff. We've done that already. Where is the midline, guys? At 1. Now notice here it wants the equation, so we just put y equals 1. And we're done. What is the amplitude? 2. Good job not including the negative. The negative will flip it, but it doesn't change the amplitude. So now, people struggled with the graphing, and understandably so. So let me show you what I would do if this was me. I would do a little graph, kind of a rough sketch, just to figure out where a starting point and where an ending point is, like a top of the hill and the bottom of the hill is, okay? So first off, guys, if this is cosine, where does cosine start? At its maximum, right? Usually cosine is there, except this time, cosine is being flipped over, so this is going to start at its minimum, okay? Now, I'm going to shift it down 1, because its midline is going to be, it's plus 1, so the midline is up 1, right? So I'm going up 1. This is my midline. And if my amplitude is 2, where does that mean the maximum point is going to be? Thanks, Antonio. He's showing me it's going to be at 3 max, because from the midline, we'll go up 2, and then we'll go down 2, so where is the minimum going to be? -1, right? 1, 2. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is we are going to put 2 key points. Normally cosine starts up here, but if I'm flipping it, where is it going to start? Down here, right? You guys with me? I think you may have checked out. We're almost done. Stay with me. Now, if nothing is going on in here, What does that mean the period is? It's normally 2 pi, right? So is it changing that? Nope, it's going to be done in 2 pi. So that means I'm going to go up, down, and be done at 2 pi. So this point right here is at 2 pi. Well then, when am I going to be at my maximum point? It's going to be halfway there. What is half of 2 pi? Just 1 pi, right? Okay, so what I have here is I've got this point. It's at 0, -1. And then I've got this point, which is over, the x value is pi, and the height is 1, 2, 3. So to graph it, I just need to know a low point and a high point. And I could have used this one, it doesn't matter which low point, but you need a low point and a high point. So I'm going to go and take this, and we're going to graph the low point. It was at 0, -1. And the high point was at pi, and how high up did we go, to 3? So I just do a low point and a high point, and then I can check my work, and we got it. Some of you guys struggle with the graphing, but does that make sense how you figure out a low point and a high point? Cool, cool. Let's go one more, and then we're done. All we had to do on this one was write the equation. It's like what we just did, but we're working backwards. So let's do that super fast, and we'll call it a day. So Jade, what is my max? What is my min? What's halfway between 7 and -1? The midline is going to be 3. If you average 7 and -1, 7 plus -1 is 6, and half of 6 is 3. So our midline is going to be at 3. So if I'm looking at my equation here, y equals, first off, this is going to be a sine or a cosine, guys.
No.
Here's the y-axis. Is it at its midline or at the max or min? Midline, so it's going to be a sine. Jane just told me the midline was at 3. From 3, how high up do we go to get to the max, or how low do we go to get to the minimum?
Go 4.
We're going 4. How long does it take for us to go through a cycle? I start here, I went down, up, and I'm done at 2 pi. That's normal, so what does that mean b is? B is just 1. Does that change anything? Keeps it at 2 pi. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this in. Y is equal, notice it's got a y equal, so I don't need to put anything else. I'm going to put in 4 sine of x
1.
plus 3.
You don't have to put the 1.
But guess what? That's wrong. I'm going to check my answer. It's going to say nope. Why is that wrong? What's missing?
It's flipped.
It's flipped. It needs a negative. So even though I had the right midline and the right amplitude, you have to check, oh, sine normally goes up first and then down. This one, since it went down first, we had to include that negative. So there you go. That is how you do quiz number 1.